Hey there, this is Christine Landl, and I am with my sister, my best friend, my business partner, Jennifer Ream, and we are so excited to be here on yet again another platform that we are creating and another chapter, another piece to our journey.
The Well Podcast. This is Jennifer Ream. So excited to be here with you guys. Our intention for this podcast is all about sharing our love for all things wellness, holistic wellness that is. And we are here to uplift, plant some seeds, and support you on your wellness journey. We've always loved being able to be out there with our community, sharing all the things that we learn. And as we grow and learn new things, we love to put them out there, and maybe they'll plant some seeds for you and help you along your journey. So here we are. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, it's Christine. So excited to be here again today talking about a very hot topic to us and one that's incredibly important for relationships with others, but also most importantly, relationships with yourself. And that, my friends, is boundaries. And what exactly does that mean? And it can mean many things. For us, boundaries were a game changer in personal relationships over the past our lifetime, I would say, but many crucial relationships that have changed just by establishing boundaries. And oftentimes you learn that the hard way by battling some demons, I would say, or coming across some triggers with certain people that truly makes you feel not good and can trip you up. And oftentimes we put that onto the other person as to the problem in the relationship. So we want to dive deep into that today. And not only what does that look like in our personal lives, but how can we overcome that to better the relationship with those people and to sometimes walk away from the relationship, and more importantly, to really self-reflect and go within as to what we can do for both personal growth and growth for our betterment.
Yeah, I think to start, I would say that what we've learned over the years is that forming boundaries and even just learning what that even means is really a form of self-acceptance and self-love. So we, as you get older and mature, you can reflect back on your life and you can see where you've had certain behavioral patterns or relationship patterns. And the more you dive deeper into that and you get curious about how you respond to certain scenarios in your life or certain people in your life, then you can see, okay, well, now that I look back on this, I can see where this relationship with my dad or this relationship with any parent or sibling or boyfriend, the first boyfriend you had, like different things like that, or girlfriend if you're a guy, you can look back and see how these experiences that you had that were in your formational years left an imprint on you. And so now as you get older, if something comes up in a new relationship or a new experience, it triggers how you felt back then. Like it's still in you. You never really let it go. And it's that inner work, that self-reflection, that process of growth is what leads you to go, oh, I need to form boundaries around these kinds of scenarios in my life and these kinds of people that I seem to attract into my life. Once you do that, your life becomes a little lighter and brighter because you've taken control, you've taken your power back. And so I think just understanding that this is about self-love and self-acceptance, and that is actually a podcast that we're going to do coming up soon, is really just all on that topic, because it's become kind of like cliche to be, take care of yourself and, have self-love, but it's so much deeper than that. And it leads you into this, this growth and really understanding that forming boundaries in your life really just makes the flow of your life so much better. It makes you so much happier, and it allows you to avoid dis-ease within your body because you're speaking your truth and you're honoring yourself and how you really feel. So I think recognizing the patterns, like we said, in yourself and in relationships. So I think there's a few examples that come to mind for me and in my personal life, but also in just recognizing in other relationships with friends that I see. Now that I've been doing the work for so many years, I can recognize it, like certain patterns of behavior, certain archetypes of your personality that that you have just within you. That's just it's part of who you are. And so you can look at it and go like, so if do you know somebody that just apologizes all the time for everything? I'm so sorry, even if it's not something they should be sorry about. Like it's something that should honor in themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's one. Do you say yes when you really mean no? Do you refrain from speaking your truth? Like that, so many of us do that in that, in hopes of not hurting someone's feelings. But I think it's all in the approach. It's all in the tone. It's all in the delivery. And I think the number one way I've done this, I know you've done this too, is we have this golden rule of don't say yes immediately when you've been asked to do something or go somewhere. If it's not a hell yes for you immediately, then it's not a yes yet. And you need to reflect on that and take some time, especially when you know it's going to be a commitment, like you're committing to a board or you're committing to PTA or you're committing to, it could be simply as committing to a social event or whatever. If you're not 100% feeling it, you need to really take a moment and say, I'm going to get back to you on that. Like, I'm not sure if that's something I can commit to right at the moment. And that's my just rule of thumb in general, because I really want to honor, like I want to take a minute and say, this is really something I want to commit my time to. So do you repeatedly find yourself in relationships or scenarios that feel depleting or drama filled? So that's a biggie. Mm-hmm. That's a big one. I think that's one of the biggest ones that we see with so many of our clients and so many people, where they're continuously finding themselves in some scenarios where there's a lot of drama, even as they get older.
Yeah, and some people attract it purposefully.
Yeah.
They get some sort of thriving on it and don't realize why.
Right. And I think that's part of that whole archetype thing. Like there's something that from their past that's still within them that makes them seek out these scenarios to play out in their lives.
Yeah. And often it's just even feeling comfortable with that feeling, even though it's, not the greatest thing and it can be on the negative scale, they still feel comfortable in it. And so they stay stuck there versus doing the work and moving through it.
Mm-hmm. So those are kind of examples of where you can self-reflect right now in your life and say, where do I need some boundaries? Where do I need to say no when I mean no? And where do I need to honor my choices and my truth, and speak up for myself? Where do I need to put some distance between myself and another person who doesn't fill my cup like feel like I'm filling theirs? If it's not a reciprocal relationship, and if it's one of those scenarios where you're around them and you constantly feel shamed, or you leave that person feeling completely depleted of your energy. This is about paying attention to how you feel around certain people or certain circumstances or certain scenarios that you continuously find yourself in.
Yeah, and I feel like those people tend to bring out your insecurities. And I think that it's important when you are reflecting on this is how they make you feel. So I feel like oftentimes it feels heavy. Your stomach can feel upset. You can feel, like Jen said, shamed. It's the feeling of not wanting to be around that person. It's all of those things that you really need to reflect on as to why it's being brought up for you too. Mm-hmm. So you got to do some digging. You've got to do some deep self-reflection through meditation. And then you do have to face it head on.
Yeah. And the most powerful part, I feel like when I look back on just different scenarios for myself and for us, you become more empowered each time you step into these scenarios with confidence. So the more you practice this, the easier it becomes, and the less that it comes up for you. Like, you start to establish these boundaries. It's part of how you live. You then don't have the scenarios coming up as much. You've kind of cleared that within yourself. And the biggest thing to recognize too is that this is never about the other person.
I just gave you that because that was exactly what I was thinking. And I can name several situations in my life that I spent many, many years trying to change the other person, how the other person treated me, how, it was always about the other person.
Yeah.
Versus going and figuring out what I can do in that situation. I would say too, what was a pivotal moment for me in those relationships was accepting that those people aren't going to change. So accepting them for who they were. It wasn't in making an excuse for how they made me feel being okay, but it was definitely a way for me to empower myself to know, okay, the change isn't going to happen with them. It's going to happen with me. So that's where, that's hard work too. It's just as hard as trying to change the other person, but it's empowering because you get more intuitive knowing as to what you need to do. And so that for me was pivotal in two really important relationships that I can think of that I spent many, many years in heartache that brought physical illness, that brought stress and heaviness. And it was doing my own personal work and then creating the boundaries, because you still have to create the boundaries.
Yeah.
Because you're not willing to go back anymore. And you're just, you know that the power lies within.
Yeah. And I think it's reflecting on those scenarios because I know what they are. I think too, what's interesting is that the energy dynamic changes. When your energy changes, the energy of the relationship changes naturally. So if you remember that we're all energy, we're all made up of energy, we're all exuding it all the time, then you can understand that your raising of your vibration, your change of your energy dynamic before you encounter that person or setting your intentions, you'll realize that they'll show up in your life in a different way for you. Your perspective on them changes. And this reminds me too of something, one of the tools we've used with many of our clients about setting boundaries with people who are not going anywhere. Like they're in your life, they're not leaving. They're like permanent figures. Whether it's in a job that you don't plan on leaving or in a family dynamic. And that is to think of them when you're working through this, think of them in the light of a child and you're the parent. And if you were looking at them in that light and really loving them the way you would love a child. So it changes your energy within you in regards to them. And of course, we are not talking about abusive situations where that's a completely different topic of conversation and different kind of boundary. And I think we can say that goes without saying that that's a true cut ties physical bound. Like there's no connection. Like that's a boundary, a different kind of boundary. If you're having that kind of dynamic in your life where it is a different level of abuse, then definitely seek out some assistance and help with that, because that is another level. But this is where we're talking about just that energetic, push your buttons, that kind of scenario. And people who are genuinely sometimes just not very kind, and you don't want to be the punching bag. So it's that where you're reflecting on them, and it doesn't have to be like in person, but before you're going to see them or in between times when you're coming and going from your life, that you're kind of reflecting on them as a child and seeing that they're acting out, their behavior is a reflection of the work that they need to do on themselves, and maybe the trauma that they've been through in their life, and maybe the heartaches that they've experienced, and it's formed them and it's created who they are. And so when you look at them in that light, it helps you to soften and kind of really see them in a lighter perspective, and it helps you change your energy and vibration.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was that whole compassion thing, which is what you're describing. It's finding compassion in any way you can to heal the relationship that you have. And, and that's aside from the fact that you're doing the work and you feel better about that person or that situation that you're creating boundaries with. You still have to find compassion for the other person in order to move through it. Otherwise, it's kind of like that tool to get you through it.
Yeah.
And to, like you said, I feel like it's really important, if you know you're going to see that person, to prepare yourself energetically, put your golden bubble of light around you, knowing that you're going to show up in a different way. And I know you kind of touched on this, but that is also another huge piece of it, because it's how you show up. If you show up with the nerves and you show up with, this person's going to be this way and this is going to trigger me, most likely they will feel that energy and that will happen. And it's almost like an inauthentic conversation, inauthentic way of being around each other. So when you show up how you want to be in your power, that person automatically meets you there. And so there is a little bit of preparation, and then it just happens automatically. And if you aren't prepared and you're caught off guard, oftentimes you can feel that too. And so you have to kind of take a step away, go to a different room, and just kind of get yourself centered and grounded to be in contact with that person. But that's really important when you're going to even be around somebody for the holidays, or in certain situations that you're not encountering people on a regular basis, to just kind of get yourself grounded, center yourself, and set your intentions. As we always say, set your intentions as to how you want to feel. And then, giving grace to that person, to yourself, but also to that person will, it's more of a embodying love energy anyway, which is what we're all seeking to do as much as we possibly can. And it's just a more enjoyable way to be anyways.
Yeah, and you said compassion for them, but I think also too compassion for yourself. So if you're triggered and you're triggered, or you're freaking pissed off and you are, and like you're irritable, whatever, that's just part of it. That's normal. It's being human, and having compassion for yourself, that you feel that way, but then also empowering yourself to work through it and feel those emotions and work through it and choose to feel differently, or choose to see and get curious. And I think that's, for me, lately, when I'm recognizing certain emotions, I've kind of taken the stance of, okay, well, let's just be curious about why I have that, that's coming up. Because then it makes you just like really dive deep. And you also get the intuitive hits. Like for me, it'll show me like, okay, this past experience just popped in my head. This emotional reaction must be a part of that experience that I had back then. Oh, wow. Okay. So there's some things I haven't let go from that scenario when I was 15, and so it's really being curious about, and that's the work. And if journaling is something you are willing to try, that helps a ton, and it's even just sitting for a minute when you have a moment and reflecting on the emotion that you are feeling and seeing what comes up for you visually. Do you see something? Do you feel something? Do you smell something? Those are all your intuitive hits that let you know this is what happened to you, and this is so buried in your subconscious that you don't even think about it. But that scenario left an imprint on you that you need to let go of right now. Oh, okay. I need to really just like feel that. And how you let it go is you feel it, you put yourself in that scenario, and you choose to feel differently with that scenario. So you're like, okay, instead of feeling scared in this moment, or instead of feeling shamed in this moment, I'm going to feel empowered in this moment. And that's how you let it go. So those little things are part of changing your reactions, changing your energy, changing your ways that you form boundaries, in your life.
Yeah. And I think that making there's that whole piece of it. And then there's also the piece of making the decision in the moment to what you're going to be around and not be around. Because there's often times, and for women, it's often has to do, with the 28-day cycle, but that you are just not feeling like you can even have, like you have the energy to put into having to do that work in the moment. So you're going to be around some people that don't always raise your vibe you don't really have that choice. Let's say that it's family, or let's say that it's work.
The holidays
or whatever. But you also have to make that choice that sometimes can feel guilty that you are just not going to be around it. So you're going to choose differently, and you might be choosing differently than your family, that your immediate family is going to be doing, or
then your friend group.
And one, you're not feeling the scene. You're not going to be around that. There's certain people I don't want to be around. So you choose to say no. And you might feel like a little bit of FOMO, or you might just feel like you're going to put people or let people down. And it just is what it is. And those right there are another form of physical boundaries that you have to own. And it makes such a huge difference, because oftentimes, if you do something, you say, like we mentioned earlier, you say yes when you mean no, is you're bringing a vibe yourself. And then you're kind of like, it's a little bit of a ripple effect as to how your evening's going to go.
Absolutely.
So you're going to attract all of those things. So I can think of several times in my life, even just recently, where I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel like I had it in me to give that energy out to be around certain people. And I just said no, and it was the most peaceful feeling ever. And it's like just knowing that you're not doing anyone a service by
pushing through
it.
Yeah. Yep. When everything in your body tells you no.
Yeah. And I tell that to even my kids, like, if you're feeling no at all, then you're not supposed to go for whatever reason. Yep. You might not know in that moment why, but you will at some point. And even if it's just you need some peace at home by yourself, that could even be why you're not feeling it. And so, or you're avoiding conversations that you didn't want to have. And right now, even given this scenario where we're living in a country and communities that are very divided, again, another example of boundaries that you have to have. And it could be with your closest of friends or family or coworkers, that you establish some pretty hard boundaries right now. Like, not going to be around that. Don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel those vibes. And so you make the choice for you, which again, when you're making choices for you that are in alignment with love and in alignment with the greater purpose of, bringing the light to this world, you're making those great choices for others as well, because it's a vibe.
I think that's such an important point that you just made, is that this is about what we are all one in connection with source, and we all are one and connected, and whether we like it or not, with nature, with each other. And so we all affect each other. Our choices affect each other. And so when we honor ourselves, we're honoring the other person, plain and simple. And so when you remember that, it helps you let go of that guilt and shame, because you're like, no, I'm doing what's best for me. Even if it doesn't feel like it's best for you, it is. It is, because it's best for me. So, and like you said, it has to be from a loving place, not best for me from a ego place, not best for me from a fear place, not best for me from a anything other than love. If it's best for you out of pure love for yourself and for other people, then it is always the right choice. So I think, in conclusion, offering some other ideas, like for us, in the past, there's some really excellent meditations out there on just loving kindness. On Insight Timer, you can go to different loving kindness meditations. And those are great to do to set like if it's the holidays, and you're going to a family function, and things like Uncle so-and-so might say something that just really freaking pisses you off, and that's how it goes because you have different views or whatever. Do a loving kindness meditation in the morning. Send him love. Surround yourself with love. And it will really set the boundaries in place for the rest of your day and for your reaction in your inner, connection with him. The other thing is understanding that you can in meditation or in just any moment, you can really just set the intention and surround yourself with a love and light bubble, like Christine kind of alluded to earlier, the golden light. But we physically will surround ourselves with that bubble. Like we see it, we feel it, and it's almost like envisioning it like a jelly-like substance where things just bounce off of it. Energy just bounces off of it. Like you are protected, and you are protected as you move through your day. So those kinds of things are things that you can do to empower yourself to walk out the door going, no, I'm good. Like I got myself all protected.
Yeah.
And then one thing I think about too that just came to mind, because I know a lot of empathetic people, but if you're an empath, you take on everyone's energy all the time just by being in the grocery store. So learning these tools is crucial for you. Crucial. Like these are things that you really want to practice regularly and get really good at, because you are really sensitive to others' energy in all different times and places. And I think about people I know who are in service and they're working with customers all day long, and they feel it all day long. The next person, comes through and they can feel it. And so if you are one of those persons, you will know it, and you'll know exactly what I'm saying right now. And so for you, those energetic boundaries are even more crucial.
Yeah, I think another little tool to put in your back pocket too, in the moment when you are feeling triggered, is to take a few deep breaths, of course, to try and release that energy that is coming onto you. But I also feel like in that moment, the compassion piece can come back to you, and you can just kind of think about, okay, I'm not going to take this personal. This person's not directly attacking me. I'm going to find compassion, and however I can. They're coming from a place of insecurity. They're coming from a place of their own shadow. They're coming from a place of their own experiences, and it's just being reflected onto me, which is, we could go into this too, but on another podcast, shadow work and all of that.
Yeah.
But
I'll add that to the list.
Yeah. But in the moment, it's realistic to know that we're going to be triggered, and you have to be able to let that go so it doesn't change your vibe. And it is just oftentimes finding compassion for that person and where they're at. And again, compassion for yourself. But to quickly change it, it's just like, okay, they're trying to get me, and they're not going to get me because, one, I've done the work, and two, I know they're coming from their own place of triggers.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Well, we hope that this was helpful for you, especially coming into the holiday season, and we're sending you lots of love. If you have a question or a story or a personal experience that you would like to share, feel free to email us at drinkjuice@vibewell.com. We'd love to hear it and or answer it. And we just love connecting with everybody. So we appreciate you tuning in.
Yes, thanks for being here, and be sure to share the love with all of those that you feel might benefit from this.
Yes, which we know there's a lot. So.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again, friends, for joining us today on our latest podcast episode. We love sharing this with you. So please share the love if you feel called to all your friends and family.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss out on what we're going to talk about next. It's always so juicy.
And of course, you can find us on social, Instagram, Vibe Well Lifestyle, and Vibe Well on Facebook. Love y'all.
And if you're in town, make sure you stop by and see us at Vibe Well too.
Yeah, we would love to see your cute face.
See you soon.
Bye.